How you doing, guys? Today we are going to start the reassembly of the Magnum 16. Now, I start these projects or these reassembly projects either one or two ways. I start with the governor system or the valves. In this case, I'm just starting off with the governor system because I had all the parts here in the basement ready to go. And the governor is kind of the internal governor portion of the engine block is made up of these parts. Got a cast iron governor gear from a K-series motor. That is the little machine washer that goes between the governor gear and the block. We have the governor arm with the tang. That's what actually rides on this little point and actuates the big arm outside the engine block itself. We have the bushing, which holds everything together. There's this little spacer, and then this is the screw that holds the whole kit and caboodle together. I'm going to use some white lithium grease to lubricate all these parts up, as well as the stud, the governor stud down here in the bottom of the block, or it's actually at the top of the block, but with the block flipped over, it's at the bottom. I'm going to lubricate all this with white lithium grease. There is a small bushing that's, I think I might be able to get you to see it here. If we move the camera down, we get the light, there it is. You can just barely see it back there. Right in the center of the hole, there is a small bushing in the back area of the block. That is physically where this end of the governor rod goes in. I'll lubricate that with some white lithium grease. So let me get this started and I'll be right back. Okay, now that we have the governor arm in its little place, the tang is obviously pointing up and it moves freely. There's no binding, there's no nothing. So we're all set to go. Make sure you put it in this position so the tang is actually up against the block. On the outside, we take our little spacer. This spacer will slide on. Then we take our bushing, which without being said, everything is squeaky clean. So we take the bushing, we're just going to slide that on. And I'm just going to start it on there until it's just seats. And there should be just a little bit of play. You can see the spacer, just a little bit of play. Everything should move nice and free. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little, I guess you call it thrush washer. I am going to lubricate that stud, put the thrush washer on, and then I'm going to slide the governor gear on. Okay, so with that, we have everything in place. The thrush washer, the governor gear, we have the tang. Everything's kind of loosely locked in. Everything moves free. And if we take this gear, you actually should be able to actuate it. In other words, the weights fling out and the little rod pushes on the governor arm. So we're all set. So that looks good. So the only other thing we need to do is we need to install the governor screw. We're going to come right here. We put that right in there. Put that in so it just about seats. So that way it's just nice and, just fitted. Grab your governor gear, make sure, yep, it's in place, it's not moving around. So we should be all set. Move that in, everything looks like. There we go. Whoop. Let's hold it in this position. There we go. Everything works. Everything is nice. All right. I'm just going to snug all that stuff down. That's all I do. You don't have to go stupid tight. Just get a little wrench, snug that down good. Take a Phillips head screwdriver, snug that down. The entire governor system is reinstalled. Okay. I'm just going to finish that up and then we'll get the valves. All right. I am going to install the intake valve. Intake, exhaust, doesn't matter which one you put in first. It just happens to be I got the intake valve. I grabbed it first, so that's the reason why I'm going to put this one in particularly first. I have the original intake spring. That's the original intake rotator. And that's the original, I guess it's the spring cup that goes on the top. And those are the original intake keepers. Really, the only thing when it comes to this particular setup is because we're using a brand new valve, you just want to make sure the intake spring ends up back on the intake valve. The rotators are pretty much the same. This motor actually has rotators on both the intake and the exhaust. So this particular install will be exactly the same for the exhaust. First things first, make sure everything is squeaky clean, make sure your guide is clean, make sure your seat is clean, because you're going to be once you put that together, you're really not going to have a second chance to clean any of that stuff. You will need, or I use a valve spring compressor, little for a small engine. So that's about it. How this actually goes together is this top piece goes on the spring. I'm doing this with one hand, so just bear with me, I'm sorry. And here's the rotator. That's actually the bottom of the rotator. This is the portion that goes towards the spring. That will go in that fashion. And then the keepers go inside there and lock into that portion of the valve. The valve spring, this whole valve spring setup, sits in the block in this position. In other words, the spring cup goes up against the top of the block. The rotator goes towards the bottom, because when we compress this, that's where the keepers are going to drop in to lock the valve in place. In order to lubricate this, I usually use a little bit of bearing grease. I know maybe somebody will say that's the worst thing in the world to use, but in all the small engines that I've put together, I'll just put a little bit of bearing grease here on the stem. That gives me that, gives you a little more substantial lubrication than the white lithium grease, because it'll stand up to the heat just a little bit longer, which I always found to be enough time for the oil to get splashed up and then drawn up the valve guide and stem. We have our lap marks, everything looks good, valve's clean and ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lubricate this valve stem. I'm going to load up the spring compressor with the intake spring setup, and then we're going to install the keepers. Okay, so we got the intake valve in the guide. I'm going to get my flashlight. Where is that? Here it is. You can see we got just a tiny ring of grease up at the top of the guide. That's just the extra that kind of wicked off when I pushed it in. Got the valve spring compressor. Compress the spring. We have the top cup in place right here. And then we have the rotator in place. We can see that notch in the valve end right there. This right there at the end of the valve. That's where this little piece right here, that's where this little guy, that little ridge, will engage. The keeper is like a wedge, goes with the thin side towards the rotator. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of grease on the end of that valve stem, so when I drop this keeper in, it kind of sticks in place. I'll put both of them in, I'll release the spring compressor, slide it out, and the valve should be installed. So as you can see, I have both of the keepers glued into place with the little bit of bearing grease. I'm just going to release the spring compressor, and this valve should be installed. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the exhaust, and I'll be right back. There we go, guys. We have the intake and the exhaust valve installed. We have the governor gear and the little governor rod are installed and ready to go. Next up is installing the tappets or the lifters and the camshaft. But before I do that, I do have to install the camshaft loosely in order to make sure that we have the appropriate end play. And I'll show you that in the next video. If you like this video, or if you found it informative, if you could please give it a thumbs up, that'd be greatly appreciated. To my loyal viewers who watch me regularly, thank you so much for your support. To the new viewers, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe if you like small engines and little engine rebuilds like this. It'd be much appreciated. Leave a comment below if you'd like. I try to respond to as many of the comments as I possibly can. I do appreciate any suggestions. Be aware that these kind of engine assemblies, there's multiple ways of doing it. I'm just kind of showing you my way and what has worked for me over the years. All right, guys, thanks so much for your support. Thank you for viewing. thumbs up if you liked it, and please subscribe if you like these kinds of videos. Have a great day.